Good morning. It is October 11th, 2023. And day, what is this, 5 of the Israeli war? All right, so we're covering a hostage situation with little precedent, as well as an Afghanistan earthquake, the Sam Bankman-Fried trial, and AI's energy problem. Threat of death. Shiri Babas, a young mother, is holding her 2 redhead sons, Ariel, who's 4, and Kiefer, who's 9 months, as armed militants surround them in an online video. In a separate video, Doran Ashir Katz, who's 34, is being blindfolded in the back of a pickup truck. Next to her are her mother, Efret Katz, 67, and her daughters, Rez, 5, and Aviv, 3. 12-year-old Erez Calderon appears in yet another video being pushed down a path by Palestinian terrorists. Why do they say militia members? They're terrorists. Noam Aleikim, a father who can be seen limping while terrorists march him across the border into Gaza. When attackers entered his home on Saturday, they shot him in the leg and used his wife's phone to live stream as they abducted the family, including his daughters, Daphne, 15, and Ella, 8. Yafar Adar, 85, is the woman in an image that much of the world has seen as she sat in a golf cart that terrorists drove into Gaza. She normally takes medication for chronic pain and heart and leg conditions. Without her medication, every minute is a horror for her. Adar's granddaughter told the Washington Post. There is no recent precedent for the scale of the hostage situation in the Gaza Strip. Hamas, the terrorist group that governs much of Gaza, abducted about 150 people during the weekend invasion of southern Israel. Most of the hostages are civilians. Hamas has threatened to execute them one by one and videotape the killings each time Israeli airstrike hits Gazans in their homes. That's freedom fighters, right? That's what freedom fighters do. No modern government, not even the world's most brutal, like those in Russia or North Korea, has used hostages in this way as human shields. You did say that the Russians did that. I guess you're walking that back now. Under threat of public execution, it is a reminder of why both the U.S. government and European Union categorize Hamas as a terrorist organization. Then why do you call them militants, huh? Why do you keep calling them militants at times? War is here. The hostages are also shaping the initial stages of this new war between Israel and Hamas, complicating Israel's planned retaliation. Israel has a long history of prioritizing the lives of its citizens who have been taken hostage. The country has launched rescue military operations, some successful, as in Entebbe, Uganda in 1976, and some not, as in the Music Olympics in 1972. Israel has also swapped prisoners with Hamas. In 2011, it traded more than 1,000 Palestinian prisoners for a single soldier, Gilad Shalit. One prisoner whom Israel released then is now the leader of Hamas. Some Israelis hope that their government can negotiate at least a limited exchange again, perhaps involving children or the elderly, but many analysts doubt that a wholesale exchange will happen. The idea of a prisoner swap now seems extremely distant, said Patrick Kingsley, the Times Jerusalem bureau chief. Why? For one thing, the number of hostages is larger, but the main obstacle may be that Hamas is unwilling to make a deal under the current circumstances. Well, of course not. They want war. Hamas, what they really want is to bring Israel inside of Gaza so that they can use drones to attack the tanks and cause severe damage. All right, so both sides know that Israel is on the verge of a full-scale invasion of Gaza intended to destroy Hamas and prevent future attacks. Israelis seem largely united behind this goal, despite their political divisions. Hamas's attacks have killed at least 1,200 Israelis relative to population size, the equivalent of around 44,000 Americans. No. What? No. That's not equivalent anything. 1,200 Israelis is equal to 1,200 Americans. Don't be talking about that kind of... What is that? Relative to the equivalent of around... No, it's not equivalent of anything. That's absurd. Many victims were defenseless civilians. One video shows a group of armed Hamas members marching 4 Israelis with their hands tied behind their backs down a street. Another video, analyzed by the Washington Post, shows the 4 lying on the same street, shot dead. The one incentive for Hamas to release hostages may be global opinion. After several years in which left-leaning Americans and Europeans became more sympathetic to the Palestinian cause, the horror of recent attacks has put some Palestinian supporters on the defensive. Not many. I think the brutality here is not helping the Palestinian cause. Stephen Walt, a Harvard political scientist, a pro-Palestinian rally in New York on Sunday, exposed the new divisions. That was where they cheered on the Palestinians killing people. And we have BLM posting pictures of the the terrorists with their paragliders saying we stand with Palestine. No, they're openly supporting genocide here. President Biden referred yesterday to the threatened executions as a violation of every code of human morality. Our colleague Peter Baker described Biden's comments as one of the sharpest, even angriest condemnations of terrorism in Israel that I've ever heard from an American president in covering the White House since the 1990s. Yeah, right. Come on. That's nothing. I mean, Trump said stuff like that all the time. So did Obama. So did Clinton. Don't say things like that. That's a lie. Israel's dilemma. Israel faces its own strategic quandaries. Hamas is likely holding the hostages in small groups scattered throughout tunnels beneath Gaza to make large rescue operation impossible. Any Israeli attacks on Gaza risk killing hostages, including civilians, citizens of the U.S. and Thailand. Here's what we know about the missing Americans. There is a challenge of a magnitude that has not ever been faced before. Bruce Hoffman, a terrorism expert at the Council on Foreign Relations, wrote this week, if the CFR is getting involved, something's wrong. Most experts ruefully say that they expect more hostages to die. As Hoffman put it, how this crisis ends will be anyone's guess, but shedding of more innocent blood, Israeli, Palestinian, and indeed non-combatant citizens of other countries is certain. Daniel Gilbert, a Northwestern University professor who has studied hostage-taking, told us she is worried that some people, especially the young and old, may have a hard time surviving captivity. Yeah. In the meantime, Israeli families have created their own informal groups to publicize the deaths or the details about their missing relatives by humanizing them to the world. The families hope to spare their lives. The first shipment of U.S. weapons arrived in Israel, and Anthony Blinken, the Secretary of State, is heading there. Why? What does Israel need the weapons for? To be honest with you, they have more than enough to flatten all of Gaza, so we don't necessarily need to be sending them more money. After retaking towns near Gaza, the Israeli military is preparing for a major offensive. Israel clashed with Hezbollah on the border with Lebanon. Experts worry about a broader conflict. If Lebanon, Syria, and Iran get into it could be real bad. Residents of Gaza say Israeli airstrikes have hit schools, hospitals, and mosque structures that are normally safe. Israel says targeting only sites connected to Hamas. Yeah, Hamas hides in hospitals, mosques, and schools. That's what they do. Israel's military and spy operations are world-class, but their failures led to the world's worst breach of Israeli defenses in half a century. I don't know that they failed. I think they let it happen. I think they wanted it. I don't think they thought it was going to be as bad, but I also think that they willingly sacrificed the civilians to start a war that they wanted because it benefits them. Certainly helped Bibi. Hamas is spreading violent videos on sites with minimal content moderation like Twitter. A student group at Harvard blamed Israel for the violence and received a furious response. Politics. Let's see. Representative George Chantos was charged with stealing donors' identities and credit card details. It just keeps getting better. I love this guy, man. He just lies like there's no tomorrow. It's glorious. But Democrats have a hard time with him because Biden lies constantly too. And so if you're going to condemn him, you have to condemn Biden. Republicans remain divided on whom to nominate for speaker. They're scheduled to vote today. It's Trump. It's got to be Trump. The memes alone demand Trump. Trump endorsed Kari Lake, who falsely claimed the 2020 election was rigged for Senate in Arizona. It wasn't really, there's a lot of evidence to show that. And as far as rigged, the Times, admits that. They admit that there was a cabal that worked to save democracy. The Biden administration declared the military takeover in Niger in July a coup, cutting off hundreds of millions of dollars in aid. Humanitarian assistance will continue. It was a coup, but it's also a coup against French and American-backed interests that were not really good for the country. So the people of Niger, they're happy. So you can just pound sand. They don't care. And as I said this a couple months ago when this whole first started, nobody's going in there to actually stop it. Niger's military is considerably stronger than the surrounding ones around it, so nobody's going in there to do anything. A whistleblower accused the office of the Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders of altering public records to cover up the purchase of a $19,000 lectern. I don't know what the issue would be there because, it's an expensive lectern, but plenty of people do that. Afghan earthquakes. A powerful earthquake hit northwestern Afghanistan days after two quakes killed 1,000 people there. Many survivors have lost most, if not all, of their immediate family. That's absolutely horrific. Comes right after the Taliban said that they would go fight for the Holy Land in Jerusalem. Maybe God's telling them to stop. International. The Times traveled with Ukraine's air assault brigades, elite units on the front lines. There's nothing. It's over. The war is done. Let's see if they even have anything to show. Yeah, okay, I guess not. It doesn't matter. The war is over. Russia has what they want. They've completely fortified it. The Ukrainians aren't going to keep dying. It's over. That's probably why this new war is starting. We need a war forever. A Russian judge ordered Ivan Gersovich, a Wall Street Journal reporter, to remain in high security prison until his espionage trial begins. Sam Bankman-Fried's former business partner and girlfriend testified that he had told her to steal from customers of FTX, the crypto exchange he founded. In the next few years, the computers. And there's another one of those things. Bankman-Fried stole hundreds of millions of dollars. He contributed over $100 million to Joe Biden's campaign. So you want to talk about rigged? Well, you have guys who stole from people giving you money. So how is that not rigged? In the next few years, the computers that power artificial intelligence could consume as much electricity as some countries do right now, which Bitcoin also does. Other big stories: Hugh Van Ellis, who is an infant, survived a 1921 racist massacre that killed hundreds of black residents in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He has died. He was 102. The Washington Post announced that it would cut around 240 jobs as it tries to offset declines in subscribers and digital advertising. But this is a wonderful economy, you said. You said it was a great economy. If it was a good economy, advertisers would not be pulling things. Money would be flowing and things would be going well. Instead, this is the worst economy we've ever endured. Joe Biden is the second worst president in history, and it's amazing that anyone can defend him. Republicans say they want election integrity. Some red counties solution: hand counting ballots guarantees miscounts. No, it doesn't. That's false. Like, that's much better. Hand count with two people doing it, which is how you do it, comes up with much better results than computer ones, which you have an algorithm that no one is allowed to see or know. Come on. Now we're getting real absurd here. Let's see. A mini market in California sold a Powerball ticket worth more than $1 billion. Could it happen again? Cool. Good for them. Trying to be funny online has become a standard for corporations. It's no longer working. It didn't ever work. Nobody really cared. Let's see. Reality meets TV. When Survivor and The Amazing Race began decades ago, they often took viewers to places that felt remote. But the world has changed. Dubai, a sprawling desert in the early season of The Amazing Race, is now a futuristic world capital. As its shows return to the air, a new story by Callum Marsh explains how they have adapted. Okay, did you notice that those shows were gone when there were no writers? It's because they're fake. They're all fake. Concert film of Taylor Swift's Eras Tour is released on Friday. Analysts are already talking about box office records. She's so, like, I get people like pop stars and everything, but she's not even that good, to be honest with you. Everything sounds the same. Why do you like it so much? Just go play old Beatles. It's the same stuff. All right, today in history. On October 11, 1984, Challenger astronaut Catherine D. Sullivan became the first American woman to walk in space as she and fellow mission specialist David C. Liestma spent 3.5 hours outside of the shuttle. In 1614, the New Netherland Co. was formed by a group of merchants from Amsterdam and Hoorn to set up fur trading in North America. In 1809, just over 3 years after the famous Lewis and Clark expedition ended, Meriwether Lewis was found dead in a Tennessee inn, an apparent suicide. He was 35. In 1884, future First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt was born in New York City. In 1906, the San Francisco Board of Education ordered the city's Asian students segregated into their own school. The order was later rescinded at the behest of President Theodore Roosevelt, who promised to curb future Japanese immigration to the United States. In 1968, Apollo 7, the first manned Apollo mission, was launched with astronauts Wally Schirra, Don Fulton Esel, and R. Walter Cunningham aboard. In 1986, President Ronald Reagan and Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev opened 2 days of talks in Iceland concerning arms control and human rights. In 2002, former President Jimmy Carter was named the recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize. In 2005, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers said it had finished pumping out the New Orleans metropolitan area, which was flooded by Hurricane Katrina 6 weeks earlier and was then swamped again by Hurricane Rita. In 2006, the charge of treason was used for the first time in the U.S. war on terrorism, filed against Adam Yali Gandin, also known as Azam the American, who'd appeared in propaganda videos for Al-Qaeda. In 2014, Customs and health officials began taking the temperatures of passengers arriving in New York's Kennedy International Airport from West African countries in a stepped-up screening effort meant to prevent the spread of the Ebola virus. In 2017, the Boy Scouts of America announced that it would admit girls into the Cub Scouts starting in 2018 and establish a new program for older girls based on the Boy Scout curriculum, allowing them to aspire to the Eagle Scout rank, and thus ending the Boy Scouts. In 2020, LeBron James and the Los Angeles Lakers beat the Miami Heat to win the NBA Finals in 6 games as the NBA wrapped up a season that sent players in a bubble at Walt Disney World in Florida 3 months because of the fake pandemic. In 2021, John Gruden resigned as coach of the Las Vegas Raiders following reports about messages that he wrote years earlier that used offensive terms to refer to blacks, gays, and women's. Woo. In 2022, NASA announced that a spacecraft that plowed into a small, harmless asteroid millions of miles away successfully shifted its orbit, a test aimed at fending off any more dangerous asteroids in the future. So that's it. It's Wednesday.